Story 1. The fact that we are glorifying jobs like being a rapper and media influencer to the point that if a kid says they want to have a real productive job like a mailman, they're ridiculed. I personally wanted to be a butler growing up but was bashed and made fun of for it to the point that it tainted my goal in life and made me scared of following that dream because I'm scared of the backlash I could get. We should stop giving out so much money to people who do little to nothing in jobs like YouTubers and basketball players and start encouraging the younger generation to become teachers, scientists, doctors, and so on, and push to raise their wages instead of reducing them. We as a society as a whole have doomed the following generations. We're running out of essential workers, people like farmers and truck drivers. How are you going to eat when there's no one farming the fields and no one to deliver the goods? Story 2. My wife left me and took my children away from me after almost 10 years of marriage when I came out as gay. She gets praised and is celebrated at work as strong and independent and for telling her truth. Yet she lied to me and her family for almost a decade. She took my house from me, cheated on me behind my back for almost 2 years, and admitted she only got together with me because I made good money and looked like good husband material to keep her parents off her back. Now I'm 52, living with my mother, and seeing my children every other week while I slowly fall into alcoholic depression. Story 3. My ex was a gaslighting alcoholic who exhausted me with an endlessly tiring, one-sided relationship. We split. She finally got help and is doing better, which I'm happy about. But I've never been able to share my side of the story of relentless caretaking and loving someone who showed zero love back. Because now she's so strong and brave for getting help. The only person to benefit from it would be me just getting some closure. It would just hurt everyone else. So I stay quiet and learn to move on in my own way, just healing my emotional damage one day at a time on my own. Plus, guys generally aren't allowed to be emotionally damaged without people telling you that you're just being a wimp or whatever, so it's my own little secret trauma. Story 4. I read lots of fiction books, mostly related to love stories. The society in which I live doesn't like those who read English books, mostly because of religious reasons. I once discussed my book reading experience with someone, and the instant reaction I got from that person completely surprised me. He said, "You better not read such books, especially the American authors. They will divert your mind from religion and blah blah." I learned 2 lessons from that person. I won't discuss my books with those who can't deal with it. Second, I will follow my heart and continue reading books that I love, no matter what others think. Thank you for such encouraging messages. Couldn't be more thankful to see such positive response. Story 5. This is actually a good post for me. I told my parents last night that I have called the suicide hotline before, and my mom wouldn't even give me a hug. I love all the love, and you all have literally made me less suicidal. I hugged my mom this morning. I think she was just so stunned that she needed to process. We were all crying. It was a mess, but I am planning on therapy and stuff to recover. Thanks so much again for all the love. Love all of you all. I have increased my medication and contacted a therapist. Trying hard. Story 6. Missing my stepkids. I just feel like everyone will be like, they are not your kids. Why does it matter? But I raised them for 2 years. Taught the youngest how to ride a bike. I miss being a dad. Story 7. How Instagram has turned, or maybe revealed, many people as narcissists. Also, I'm curious what will happen when these people do not receive as much attention when they age. Story 8. A woman smacked my behind when I passed her at a bar. I yelled at her pretty loudly about how I would be in handcuffs if I did it. She does not even know me and so on. I guess it was a bit of a scene, and someone called the police, and I had no clue until they showed up 20 minutes later. They grabbed me and said someone was screaming and being aggressive toward a woman at the bar and that I fit the description. I explained exactly why I was yelling, and they let her go because she was crying. They told me to leave the bar and go home for the night. I was sexually assaulted and had to leave the premises because the woman was upset. It still fills me with infinite rage to this day when I think about it. Story 9. The whole never hit a woman even if she's hitting you thing. Obviously, don't throw a Superman punch, but if she's slapping you and trying to punch you, definitely push her away. Story 10. Video games. My mother's siblings, especially my Aunt Karen, dislike video games strongly, to the point they say all gamers are failures of society. My aunt always speaks poorly of me because I have played video games since I was young, and it serves as my stress-relieving activity and a way to have fun immersing in game lore and stories. My mother, on the other hand, supported me with everything, even in the games I play. We became very private because of this, and it helped me, my brother, and my mother bond together through video games. No one in our extended family knows, even to this day, that we are doing better, and currently, I am on the president's list at a good university. Story 11. I was in an abusive relationship but feel like I can't talk to anybody about it. She had been abused by her mother as a child, so if someone called her out on it, I defended her and blamed it on her upbringing. I also claimed she was getting better, which wasn't true at all. Story 12. How nuclear power is actually our way out of climate change, since it could replace millions of tons of carbon emission with a singular ton of atomic waste. At the same time, fewer people would die from the rare nuclear accidents in a year than from secondary effects of coal mining and burning every month now. My extended family wholly bought into the fear campaigns against nuclear power and short-sighted green activists. Story 13. The fact that I've struggled with self-harm and suicidal depression. I've never been able to talk about it openly with my closest friends or family. I know everyone has their own issues to deal with, and it's a lot to put on someone. Story 14. I used to be an abusive partner, and I am not that person anymore. I have gone to therapy, realized my horrid tendencies, and have been a better person for years now. I spent so long being a terrible person that no one believes I have changed. And while I cannot blame them, I want to make things right and be as great as I can be. I advocate heavily for victims of domestic abuse and have marched for them as well as other women's rights causes. I will not ever stop, not because of the guilt I feel, but because it is the right thing to do, advocacy for women and victims of domestic abuse. But I also feel like a massive hypocrite, having been at one point what I now fight against, and I do not know how to get past that feeling. Story 15. I'm right on the borderline of healthy weight and being medically overweight. I cross back and forth multiple times throughout the year. I never had to worry about weight until I hit 30, but ever since, it's been a challenge that keeps getting harder. The thing is, I'm still the fittest of anyone in my social group, and anytime I've even hinted about needing to lose a few pounds, I get chastised and treated like I'm personally attacking them for their weight. Story 16. I don't deserve special thanks, approval, or recognition for picking up my kids from school. I'm their dad. It's a routine, mundane task. Their mom doesn't get any special thanks or recognition. Also, don't congratulate me for babysitting my own kids. I don't babysit my own kids. They're my kids. I take care of them like any parent would. It's my responsibility. I'm not merely a babysitter. I'm not taking on a special responsibility. It is my responsibility. Story 17. Afraid to tell my wife that her lack of intimacy is hurting me mentally and physically. Even after telling her, it becomes my fault for wanting sex. Story 18. Weed isn't harmless just because it's a natural plant that grows in the ground. Now, I'm not against marijuana or anything. I think all drugs should be decriminalized at the very least. That doesn't change the fact that people should make informed decisions about what to do with their bodies, and misinformation hinders that. Just because an officer from drug abuse resistance education lied to you about weed when you were in school doesn't mean you should exaggerate in the other direction. Story 19. That anyone, regardless of race, age, gender, sexuality, nationality, social class, economic class, mental standing, physical and mental ability, and emotional state, is capable of doing bad things. Just because you're a minority, mentally ill, disabled, or anything else doesn't give you an automatic gold star. You're human just like the rest of us. This is directed at members of minority communities that treat others poorly. Trans-exclusionary radical feminists, transmedicalists, and homophobes within the community are what I mean. Story 20. That it's stupid and ridiculous to raise your child by only communicating with them in English and not teaching them the native language when you clearly live in a non-native English-speaking country. In my country, I've seen a lot of parents do this and even refuse other people to talk to their child in any language other than English. They think it's cute. No, it's not. It makes you, as a parent, look ignorant to raise your child in a country with a very rich culture and a beautiful language and not expose them to it. It's sad that it's very common here, and some people's mindset is my child only speaks English, therefore she is smart. That's not how intelligence works. I've known kids in school who were only taught English growing up. They ended up being labeled as the weird kid. Sure, people were impressed with their English, but they always felt left out because they understand the native language but can't speak it enough to chat or play with the other kids. We may not live in one of the best countries, but at least respect it enough to teach your children our language. They'll still learn English in school. That's just my 2 cents. Story 21. The way in-studio female weather reporters are almost always attractive and wearing tight dresses. Yet male weathermen are usually older guys with catchy made-up weather-related names. So weird and sexist. I want to see an older dynamic woman waving her arms and talking about tornadoes. Don't believe me? Search for Yannick Garcia or Jackie Johnson. Now look up Dallas Raines or Johnny Mountain. Story 22. As a black man, I completely understand the importance of the past, and I am fully aware of how this nation has done many injustices against African Americans. However, every single time I talk about moving forward, forgiving, and not holding every single white person to the poor decisions of a few, past or present, I receive so much criticism from my own community. I've been held at gunpoint by a police officer for no reason after leaving work. I am a general manager for the place where the Lord's chicken is made, so I was locking up and was told that I was robbing the place. I had keys. I've been called racial slurs multiple times this year alone. I've been tempted to judge all white people. However, for every bad police officer, there were 20 great ones who helped me change flat tires, drove me to a gas station when I ran out of fuel, or were just cool people. For every racial slur used, there were 50 great people who invited me into their home as family and treated me with the utmost respect. I would rather work towards reconciliation than force guilt on those who may look like the bad ones but are fighting alongside me. Thank you for everyone's opinions. I surely respect each and every one of them. Also, thank you for the awards. Story 23. That there are very real issues and challenges facing men in American society, but there's very little room to highlight or prioritize them in mainstream discourse. They either get pejoratively lumped into a toxic or misogynistic men's rights thing, or they get twisted back around to make it about prioritizing women and girls. Perfect example of the latter, 3 days ago, the Wall Street Journal published a story about how women now outnumber men at college by 50%, a 3-to-2 ratio, or a 60% to 40% split. A generation of American men give up on college. I just feel lost. The number of men enrolled at 2- and 4-year colleges has fallen behind women by record levels, in a widening education gap across the U.S. Then yesterday, the New York Times published the story explicitly in response to the Wall Street Journal article. Men fall behind in college enrollment. Women still play catch-up at work. Women are overrepresented in low-paying professions that require college credentials. I'm not claiming men and boys have it harder than women and girls, just that each gender faces specific challenges, and I wish there were more receptivity to discussing the specific challenges faced by men and boys. Story 24. Being raped or abused in any way as a man can be incredibly difficult. Any single person you tell laughs or doesn't care. The number of suicide attempts and hospital trips before finally finding a therapist was unbelievable. Story 25. Why are lying fake politicians given so much leniency and entirely ignored by government regulations, the Internal Revenue Service, and stock manipulation in particular? Story 26. I have a hard time separating my undergraduate years from all the times my dad and his customers would talk about how stupid and useless I am, or how what I do at school is easy. Kinda makes me want to forget about my degree. Story 27. All female TV and movie reboots. In my head, this is low-key misogynist because it sends the message that Hollywood doesn't have faith in women unless they're well-known properties that already starred men. Sort of related, but I also keep my mouth shut about gender pronouns. Story 28. My ex-wife came out as gay. She started a relationship with her friend, and the whole thing was celebrated, which is great. They can be who they want to be. Our kids went into counseling, and the older ones don't have the same relationship with her anymore. They still love her, but it's not the same connection. I went through a grieving process, and since then we've gotten divorced and slowly healed. It's great that people are more accepted for who they are these days, but I'm a little broken and probably should have spoken to someone about it from the start. Story 29. No one should be body shamed, but we also shouldn't encourage or propagate the idea that it is totally okay to be obese or underweight. There are real and serious harms done by the idea that it is totally fine and acceptable to be obese, and the same for being seriously underweight. The idea that all women should look like models who are clearly starving themselves to maintain that appearance is also seriously wrong.